You're listening to Radio Mayapur with the best devotional, meditation, kirtan music, and inspirational podcast. This is Radio Mayapur.
So thank you very much. Today we are in Mayapur. It's a very hot day outside. It is almost 40 degrees. It's very sunny and there's not many people walking in the street. And today we're very, very fortunate to have with us Radhika Prabhu, who is born in Spain, his body, and in 1973. And then he moved to England. Welcome to Radio Mayapur, Prabhuji. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. I've seen you around in Mayapur many, many times. I spoke to you maybe a few times, and I know you are a very sweet, loving person. And I thought of doing a podcast with you because you look like an interesting person. So tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, when you grew up in Spain, and Italian people, they're all caliente, they're all warm people, nice. Now, very similar. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Thank you for having me in the program. Thank you for the invitation. Pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here. Well, I was born in Costa del Sol.
Costa del Sol.
Major tourist attraction. So, and my family were all Roman Catholics, relatively pious, nothing special. And then, I had a regular childhood. I was kind of a religious boy, you could say. I was interested. I read the gospel many times in cartoons, so I was very
interested,
like Jesus, and I used to pray a lot. So, and then I reached my teens, and things became wild.
Natural experiencing with the world
for a few years, and I read a few books. I was always a bit of a philosopher, a little bit of a thinker, and I read a few books on, I was reading Aldous Huxley, Hermann Hesse, different.
These are all the people who are interested in spirituality. They go through this channel or reading
Alan
all this
Watts.
book.
I mean, it was all these impersonalist people, but,
Somebody said this. There are different types of souls. These are the old soul people who start to, pondering about life and what is the meaning, because they can see we're becoming old. We see people die. We see children taking birth.
Yeah.
And then we think about, okay, what's in the night? We look at the star and think, okay, what's the meaning of all this?
Yeah.
So I had to figure it out. So somebody said these are old souls who are coming to this mature world, trying to figure out what is what. Yeah.
Actually, I remember one time, this is the first time I had a moment of kind of self-realization. And I was playing with these, these cars made of metal, on the floor.
Yeah.
So I was 5 years old, maybe, something like this. And I was thinking about what happens after death.
Yeah.
And I just remember I couldn't accept that there was nothing after death. I remember thinking, it's just not possible. The whole universe is working and I die and that's it. And I remember this very distinctly. So anyway, there was this, understanding of something beyond
deeper
matter. Yeah, deeper meaning to things.
It's interesting. The same thing happened to me when I was very young, maybe 7, 8 years old. And I had a bicycle and I stopped outside my grandfather's shop who's selling ice cream, milk, coffee. And I said, Grandfather, please tell me, what happened after that? And he looked at me and he gave me a slap in my head. He said, take this ice cream and just go on a bicycle and play. Why are you asking such a question now? You're so young. I said, no, but I want to know. No, go. So it's interesting, So
my father will say, we all go to heaven. But, it didn't make sense. Everybody goes to heaven, no matter what you do. So, I was not entirely happy with the, Roman Catholic thing.
Because also there is not much explanation of the soul and the body difference.
Exactly.
So people go to heaven.
Exactly.
When you see the dead body there, and then who is going to heaven? How is he going to heaven? The final judgment of God is coming.
Yeah.
Jesus was nice because he's preaching pure love. But then how the application of that and some missing portion was there.
Yeah.
So, but quite interesting. So, Radhika Prabhu, you have been practicing Bhakti Yoga since 1995. So tell us how you met, what made you change your mind? No, you were already, let's say, on a spiritual path, but then, when you become young, then you start to experiment with the world. But then at one point you decide, no, I should go this way. So what was make you change or make you decide to actually get deep into spiritual life?
Looking in retrospect, I can see like it was a sequence of events.
Absolutely.
It was, but even though I had a kind of happy childhood, my brother was, have issues with heroin, and there was always problems in the house.
Elder brother.
Yeah, elder brother. So, I was suffering within the happiness of, youth and Spain, and we were like an upper middle class. We had a nice house, go to the beach. It was enjoyment. Life was meant for enjoyment. But I had always this, they call in Spain, you always have a cross to carry, right?
Everybody carrying his own cross.
Exactly. So that was mine. So then I went through the whole thing of him coming out of it, and then, I started myself to experiment with drugs, only, psychedelics, because I was into, thinking, and it was more not as an addiction, but more as an experiment. And it was great. Really, this was like maybe not so good to say for a Hare Krishna, but they were happy times,
It opened
my mind. Yeah. And that's when I was reading, various books. And I read Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha.
Yes.
I read it twice. I read it cover to cover, and I finished, and I read it again, And it really impacted me, this idea of, higher consciousness, developing different consciousness. So I wanted to go to India. But then what happened, so that, I kind of got, through my brother, I got into the
difficult time,
bad world, you could say, crime, and just for about a year. And, at one point I thought, I don't want to do this, I want to go to India, And so that was 94, something like this. And in January 95, I was going to India, but a friend of mine was in England, and he said, you come to England first, and then from there, you learn a little English, and then you go to India. It'll be cheaper there. It'll be cheaper traveling. So I arrived in England, and I moved into an apartment where there was a fallen devotee, his faith was intact, but he had all Prabhupada's books, all his, all his teachings, it was, so he started to preach to me, and I was like, he was like a dodgy guy, you could say, and that was my kind of world, we were smoking, and, and then, he took me to the temple, and it was like instant.
Which temple that was?
Leicester. Okay. It was a small temple, no brahmacharis.
Yeah.
And it was in one sense good because it was kind of gradual, because I think for me, at that moment, I needed the gradual thing, it was this.
Slowly.
So, and then there was a Spanish first canto. I didn't speak English at the time, by the way. Okay, there was, so he gave me the first canto of the Bhagavatam, and I remember reading that book, and think, changing my consciousness, I was writing like a little journal afterwards, like I really felt uplifted, big time. And then, I'm going, every time I was going to the temple, I was having a lot of kind of reciprocation, from Krishna. But because I was still like taking intoxication, and it was, a confused period in my life, I was thinking, maybe I'm just making another mistake, I made so many mistakes
maybe
before.
It's another hallucination.
Another hallucination, So I remember I said, I prayed to Krishna, I said, if you are there, I think you are there, but I'm not sure, you have, just give me a sign, make it clear. And if you make it clear, I will surrender. I'll give my life,
Beautiful.
So this was like, maybe it was a Tuesday or something like this, it was weekday. So for a few days until the weekend, the Sunday program, I was following the 4 regs, which, I was breaking them all at that time. Of course, so I kind of, and I started to offer my food, not with the mantras. I had the higher taste. I opened the higher taste, the picture of Gopal, And I was just like thinking, because, it was all foreign for a Spanish person,
Of course.
like offering food. But anyway, I did everything the best I could for a few days. And then Sunday came and I went to the temple. And, I had a spiritual experience, one of these that, I was just like,
The kirtan,
overwhelmed.
the people.
Yeah. It was, it was such an intense experience that I told Krishna, okay, stop it, I know.
I know you're there.
I know
now.
you're there now. Just leave it, because I was overwhelmed and, I was
Crying.
Yeah, and it was very embarrassing. I was, you're trying
to control.
Self-conscious, but anyway, it was a wonderful experience. And then at the end of the program, there was Prabhupada's Murti was on the corner of the temple, by the altar, and then I was right at the back, sitting, long hair, not looking sadhik at all. But the wife of the temple president, she picked up Prabhupada's garland. She walked all the way through to the back where it was and gave me the garland. And I said to her, what does this mean, And she said, welcome. And anyway, that for me was confirmation.
Yeah.
I still have the garland.
Whoa. From that time?
30 years,
Become dry.
It's dry. It's very small now. I don't know how it even seems that it becomes, but I have it in Spain.
Nice.
So anyway, so that was a kind of important point. And then time went on, and then.
But you were living in the temple?
I was living in
outside,
Leicester. I was
nearby.
studying. The first year I was just learning English,
Mm-hmm.
and the second year I was studying media at the college. And I was already chanting a little bit, but there was no brahmacharis there to kind of teach me anything. So eventually I went to the manor, 96, early, I don't remember when, after a year, just practicing. And then again, when I went there, it was like rediscovering Krishna consciousness, because I never seen brahmacharis. The first time I saw deities,
Big park.
It was just like
ecstasy.
I was chanting like 42, 44 rounds a day from chanting like 4. It was like, boom, exactly.
You went on a rocket spaceship.
I was like, and the deities, the first time I saw the deities, Sita from Sitaram Lakshmana, it's giving so much mercy. And I also like feeling a lot of my anarthas, that I never see with such clarity before. So everything was coming together, that was 96. By that time I had a beautiful girlfriend in Spain and everything was going okay materially, So I went back to Spain and, my girlfriend was, very wealthy and she wanted to marry me and, everything was okay. It was good. We went on a holiday for a weekend and taking sunbathing, eating paella in the park. Everything was as good as it could get. And I remember thinking, I'm not satisfied, I'm not happy, And I told her, I said, I don't know, but, it's not going to get any better than this later, I know there is something deeper to life. And that was just before Prabhupada's centennial, So I can remember that I heard that there was Prabhupada's centennial on that day. And I drove all the way from that place where I was on holiday with her to the temple. And I bathed Prabhupada. And it was, I think that was the console. I was chanting 16 rounds by then.
But she was interested in Krishna consciousness?
She was interested in Krishna consciousness, but,
She was not 100% convinced.
It's just like,
because she likes you, so
her mother had been Miss Spain. Very wealthy people. Very, what I was experiencing, she wasn't experiencing. So it was
difficult for people like this to take up the full Krishna consciousness.
So I went back to the University of Humberside to study media. And then, I stopped at the manor for a few days and the cold was so strong, and then I met the devotees in Humberside in Hull. And they invited me to come to the temple in Scotland. And then I moved to the temple. Nice. I gave up my girlfriend and But I remember also one thing that happened when I went to the manor that was very significant. It was that, what happens when you go to the Hare Krishna temple the first time? Put you to wash pots,
Of course.
So I was there like washing pots
you are sincere.
Yeah, so I was like washing pots for like 1.5 hours. Pots kept coming in. I remember it was like the kitchen, mountains of pots. It's a little window, on the kitchen. I like light, I need light myself. But there was no light. There was just like the body that was really grumpy. He wasn't really into washing the pots. And I was happier than I've ever been in my whole life, And I was just thinking, wow, if I'm so happy just washing pots, what will it be like, to chant and to dance and to...
Actually, washing the pot to wash in your heart.
And I experienced that, So that was before I went back to Spain. So I had that kind of in my mind. And after I went to the manor, I started to chant 16 rounds also by...
Nice. So you were in Scotland for some time, and eventually you were one of the leading, book distribution devotee there. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, that was
because you were going on the road now at this point. You were convinced yourself, but then you went in to convince other people and try to distribute the mercy.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I was at the manor for a few days, but the manor somehow the devotees didn't really kind of understood that I was ripe, So when I went to the university in Humberside, the Scottish devotees had a Nama-hatta there. So they will come every Thursday. And, it took like a couple of weeks. I was just like, just waiting to be with the devotees all the time. So then I moved to the temple and I was just this temple was really focused on book distribution. It was like maybe, It was on the top 3 or 4 temples in the world, even though it was a medium temple.
Wow.
We're distributing millions of books.
Which year it was?
This was 96, but there have been top book distributors from the early 90s.
Who was the GBC? Prito Prabhu?
No, there was, his name was, when I joined, his name was Balabhadra Prabhu.
Oh, Balabhadra, yeah.
You know?
I know him, I've been there.
Bhakti Balapuri Maharaj became afterwards. So it was a very isolated temple.
Yeah.
And it was hardcore, old school. So we were out in the streets from we will leave this. I was not in the temple, I was in a sankirtan house, traveling party. So we leave the temple at 8:30 in the morning, the house, come back usually at 9 o'clock at night. Monday to Friday, Monday to Monday.
Yeah.
All the time. So we were going to, I got to travel to every little town in England, cold, in the cold weather, it's freezing, So this was
great austerity for us from
biggest, and I look back and I'm thinking, gosh,
place.
Exactly. But this was the irony, that Krishna knew me, and he had to put me
in some place.
The opposite. You cannot, it's Malaga and Scotland, it's like couldn't be more opposite. Even the people, Scottish people are very kind of negative and cold. So, but I think that was needed for me to cut the, spirit of enjoyment.
The umbilical cord.
Yeah, exactly. And I suffered because it was the attachment to Spain and to the family. I didn't see my family for years, but it was a wonderful time distributing books, and we distributed a lot of books, and did a lot of austerities. It was cold to the extent that my hands were so cold that I could not move them. I had to go in the toilets and put them under the dryer. Hot water and under the dryer, and just to get the blood and the feet.
Sometimes Krishna wants to see how sincere you are. Yeah, it gives different people different tests.
It was, I think, looking back, I think it was.
Sometimes Krishna sent these people from Scotland to Africa somewhere.
Yeah. But the one thing that happened at that time, and it was really funny, we in Scotland, I haven't seen share this in public yet. This is the first time, but
it's all right.
Anyway, we had the Gauranga campaign going on. And the Gauranga campaign was basically we were just spreading the name of Gauranga all over the UK. So part of this Gauranga campaign was to put big signs
in all the bridges.
In all the bridges. You know about it, right?
I've seen it.
You see, so we went to put one in one of the big, huge motorways in England, And as we're doing it, those days the mobile phones were not yet there so much, And the police, it was Kartik, so the police came on the bridge and we started to run.
Away.
And you see, when they said in Kartik, you're supposed to break sweat to attract Krishna's mercy, So we were running from the police, and one of the devotees said to me, "So Carlos," I was back to Carlos. "So what do you think of this?" And I said, "I'm loving it," because that was the kind of mindset at that time, that kind of adventurous, rebellious, and so Krishna tricked me in that way. And this Goranga campaign was really amazing. We did a lot of bridges.
It's funny because some devotees, they were distributing books and they say, "Oh, this is Goranga." And the guy said, "Oh, I know Goranga."
Yeah.
I say, "How do you know Goranga?" "Yeah, Goranga is the company manufacturing all the bridges." When I drive the car, I see Goranga.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, must be a company manufacturing bridges, So
actually, what happened was that
I know where all the DOSes come from.
Only what?
I know where every DOS on earth comes from.
Uh-huh.
I drove past it in Chicago, Illinois, DOS Manufacturing Company.
DOS Manufacturing Company.
This Goranga thing, it became so huge that there is a video game called Grand Theft Auto, which it was the number one video game in the whole world, number one.
Wow.
So when you complete the game, you run over these monks, and the word Goranga comes on the screen, So it became like, the whole the north of England and
become influenced by this
Goranga. They were Goranga. We were walking down the road. People got tattoos with Goranga. People were naming their houses Goranga. I mean, it was, and I was doing sankirtan, and they would say, "No, interesting." And I said, "Anyway, can you say Goranga?" Boom. They will stop and say, "What is it? What is it?" I've been seeing it everywhere. Can you tell me what is it? One time we were doing a bridge on the one of the roads, and this car passes through, and we see him goes to the end and comes back, and we were like thinking, "Shall we do it?" But we just continued, and the guy comes out to the window and say, "What is it? What is it?" And I say, "It means it's an anti-swearing campaign, This is like, it just means be happy." I said, "Be happy." He said, "Yeah." It's just, even the police, they were not that kind of
against
it,
because it's not against anybody.
It was just a nice thing. We had so many stories, that Krishna protected us from. But anyway, that was part of those years, book distribution, preaching, Nama-hattas.
But then you went also to university and you started to preach?
The university, I went to the university, but we started 2 programs, in Leeds University and in Sheffield University, and we made some devotees. In fact, I was just now in South India, and I made one devotee there who is now in charge of coordinating the courses at the Govardhan Eco Village for Goranga Darshan. He's like one of the main. And he came from that University of Leeds. He became a devotee there,
Amazing.
We didn't make a lot, but a few, So
good one.
Yeah, and I forgot his name now, Goranga Priya, I don't forget his name.
So then, since 2008, you've been in Mayapur. So what make you choose Mayapur as a destination for?
Well, all these years, as I say, it was a hardcore temple, no visits to the dam,
book distribution.
That's it. We hardly even Radhika Yatra in London was like once every few years. It was really
intense.
It was but anyway, it was what it was. I'm grateful for those years. It was nice. We learned a lot of discipline. We were doing Nirjala Ekadashi, mandatory chanting a lot of rounds. So then what happened was that the whole thing fell apart because there was some problems with the leader. And what I was saying this year, I've never been to Mayapur, never seen it, nothing. I've been to Vrindavan like twice. And I remember being in doing sankirtan one time, and this guy passes by and I say, I'm going to Mayapur. He wasn't even at the devotee, He said, I'm going to Mayapur. And I was saying to Lord Chaitanya, I say, I'm spreading your holy name. I'm distributing books for years,
Please take me.
What's going on, This guy is just going to Mayapur. I want to go to Mayapur, please, So 2007, I came to Vrindavan, spent some time with Shivaram Swami.
Nice.
And then, there was a time of turbulence in our temple because there was some issues with the leader there, and I happened to be one of the leaders also. So then, 2008, I requested the temple if I could come to do Bhakti Shastri and Bhaktivaibhava. Bhakti Shastri in Vrindavan and Bhaktivaibhava in Mayapur. So I was really eager to study Prabhupada's books because during those years we didn't have time to read so much, I mean, I read the whole Bhagavatam on the Sankirtan car, we would eat in the Sankirtan car.
Of course.
It was so. So anyway, I came to Vrindavan, then to Mayapur, studied Bhaktivaibhava, and then Atul Krishna Prabhu and Yamastami saw some potential in me, and they said, "Why don't you come and become a teacher?"
Nice.
So this was like totally unexpected and like a dream. So I came back, and I was here for, from Kartik time. Kartik I will go to Vrindavan and spend a few months until May. And gradually I became, part of the community. Well, I was a teacher all those years, but I became part of I still see myself as a guest, because anytime Krishna may say,
go and do something
else.
Sure.
You don't know, right?
Whatever.
But we love it.
But it's interesting that Atul Krishna and the other devotees saw some potential in you. Sometimes we don't see ourselves what we are able to do, but sometimes this is inspiring. I would think about myself if somebody will come and say, hey, you can do this, and why don't you be part of this? So this is something which Krishna directed the devotee to inspire you to do some particular service in our life.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, if you order me to do so, or if you see that I can do this, I can try.
But it was funny because Prabhu, I am a more kind of introverted person, more kind of shy. For me, book distribution was a big challenge.
Of course.
But somehow I did it, and I became, I won a few marathons there also. But then the next thing was to give classes,
Mm-hmm.
I was so afraid of these things, like panic, And then
when you got in front of the microphone, you're like,
it's just like, I'm going to freeze or something, And then they asked me to become the coordinator for the Bhaktivaibhava. And that year, all the teachers were all sannyasis, gurus. There was
senior
devotees. Hari Sari Prabhu was the only one who wasn't a sannyasi. And looking back, I thought, how on earth I was so audacious, to
be able
to do it, because, but the Bhagavatam is somehow my sacred place. I love study Bhagavatam, and this gave me an opportunity to really just kind of dive deep into it.
And also, I think that you didn't go yourself. You were empowered by the devotee to do this.
Yeah.
And somebody else said, no, you do it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So it's not presumptuous to
Correct.
say, oh, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm able to do this. No, it's like the devotee tell you, okay, you should do this.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, let me try.
It was kind of it was kind of organic, I didn't.
Yeah. So that's very important.
But that began like a new phase in my life where it brings me to the present, where I just kind of, the Prabhupada's books became like a constant companion, They were before, but before was more like distribution,
yes. Now
I couldn't really go in
deep.
depth. Yeah. And that changed my life.
Of course.
To all the challenges that we experienced before, and everything was kind
it's
of
funny
processed.
because Prabhupada say, everything is in my book.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we think, what? But then once you start reading them, and apart from the Bhagavatam by itself, but because Prabhupada gives the purport, which includes a lot of stuff inside, contemporary things, mentality of the West, mentality of India, the culture, the war, that everything you can think of, Prabhupada was so sharp. He put it inside, so not to leave any stone untouched,
It's
unturned.
amazing.
So you cannot say, you cannot say that, I'm sorry, I just switch off my phone.
Yeah.
Keep going. So then?
Yeah, some of these purpose, he wrote in like early 60s, he've never been to the West, and they're so crystal clear, description of the West, the material situation.
Everything.
And as I said, even now, this is like a sacred space where I can go and, be shelter.
Absolutely.
And sharing this with other people, this experience with other devotees has become my main service for the last 17 years now.
What do you think is the importance of study Bhakti Shastri course for people thinking of getting initiated? I don't know if now it's a preliminary. When we got initiated, we didn't have to do Bhakti Shastri.
Yeah, I think so.
We need to read the Bhagavad-gita, Upanishad, this, that, But now I think it's becoming it's like you have to have Bhakti Shastri in order to get at least some spiritual master demand that, so that you have in-depth knowledge of what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Because if you take initiation, taking vow of following for your life certain principles.
Yeah.
So how you think this can bring change in the mentality of people who are doing this Bhakti Shastri?
Sure. Well, what it does, it gives you a foundation, philosophical foundation for your spiritual practices. It's like you need to have, I give sometimes the example, many years ago, I was in Sharjah in the Emirates, near Dubai.
Yes, Sharjah.
So I was in a skyscraper, maybe like 10th floor or whatever it was, 12th floor. And I was studying, I was actually teaching Bhakti Shastri, and I was in the computer. And then the computer all of a sudden went like bzzz.
There was an earthquake.
It was an earthquake.
Yeah, I know.
It was a huge earthquake. You can imagine a skyscraper going like this.
Moves,
and I remember just thinking, I don't want to die here. That was the first thing I thought. And I went to my deities. I thought, well, I'm not going to die running now. I just die in front, because it really was scary. It was just a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
But then it turned out that the earthquake had been all over the UAE, and it had been very big, but there was no casualties. There was no accident, nothing. Why? Because all the buildings were built with a strong foundation.
Of course.
So
they can swing, but they don't crash.
They don't crash, So in a spiritual life, everybody goes through storms, and sometimes you may get an earthquake. Maybe not, hopefully not, but you will get definitely storms,
Something. You go up and down in life.
You go up and down. So you need to have a strong foundation. And that's what Bhakti Shastri course gives you. It gives you a philosophical foundation, which is basically Sambandha Jnana, which helps you to understand who is Ishvara, Krishna, who are you, it's the Jiva, and Prakriti, the material nature and how we interact. And when you have a clear understanding about your relationship with Krishna, your relationship with material nature, and how you interact with each other, then you're able to accommodate reality.
Everything.
No matter what happens to you, you can see Krishna's plan, you can understand, you can give a deeper meaning to life.
Absolutely.
So this, and that's one side of things. Another important aspect is that you get to associate with Prabhupada directly for a few months that you're studying. So, I've been doing this for so many years now, and every time, the students share their experience at the end of the course, and they say it was a life-changing experience.
Of course.
Life-changing, like before and after. And it was the case for me after, I was, and it doesn't matter if you're old, if you're a man, if you're a woman, if you are full-time devotee, if you're grihasta, you're brahmachari,
doesn't matter.
No matter who you are, it's going to touch your heart, because this is the whole purpose of Shastra. The whole material creation is meant to give us an opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead. How? through the Shastra. We study the Shastra, we understand the purpose of human life, and we implement it in our lives. So that's another thing. And the other thing also that is very amazing is that, and that's my goal when I teach these courses, is that you get a taste for reading and chanting. That's the main goal. So it becomes part of your life.
Absolutely.
And instead of, wasting time listening to our minds or in social media or distracted by so many things, particularly now it's so difficult to stay out of that, you can have a habit of reading Prabhupada's book daily. And, so.
I wanted to ask you whether there's any particular age group which you, or maybe sometimes children also can do Bhakti Shastri. I don't know if because you are doing this, So.
I have had the youngest Bhaktivaibhava student. I don't remember how old she was, but she may have been like 14 or something, and she got Bhaktivaibhava, here in Mayapur, Gorangi. So
they're exceptional.
Exceptional, but
usually
I think it depends on the teacher more than the student.
Okay.
The teacher, if the teacher is understands what the dynamics are with the students. I don't know what will be the minimum age, but according to the Board of Examiners, there's a minimum age. I don't remember now what it is.
Young, 15, 16,
something
17,
maybe 14,
18.
something.
Yeah.
But you can teach Bhagavad-gita to
anyone,
much younger. In Dubai, they have these Bhagavad-gita competitions, and
beautiful
sloka competitions.
Children,
huge,
yes,
and they're
huge.
like making their parents. These are non-devotees children, and the parents are becoming devotees through their, the children learning Bhagavad-gita.
And of course, Prahlad Maharaj said that from when you're a child, from 5 years old, you should learn this.
Exactly.
So it's giving an example to teaching to all these students.
I think we sometimes think about what, the problems in ISKCON and this and that, which I am aware of, is no question about it, but this is a very simple solution to all the problems of life, and it's to absorb your mind in the teachings of Srila Prabhupada.
I've seen in the school, in our school here in Mayapur, we have 3-4 schools, whether it's national, international. I think they're all guiding to, comprehend what are the scripture and what about teaching.
That should be the emphasis.
And that's what they're learning, I believe so, because I have grandkids and sometimes say, I tell you story from Ramayana. Which one? I already know. They know everything.
There is, there is a blank slate.
They're like a sponge.
A sponge absorb.
So it's so nice that the teacher gives this knowledge to them, and they're able to take
which
it.
Is our responsibility,
Absolutely.
That these kids, when they are so pure and so that you can influence them nicely, put on him important values, teach them important values.
But my experience, I have 2 sons now, they're grown up, 36 and 32, and they went to Gurukul and they were living in Mayapur with us. So me and my wife would say, well, we can only guide people. At one point, they have to choose what they want to become. Sometimes I told my son, okay, go to Italy, work sometime there, see how it is in the material world. And he did it, the elder one. The younger one, I told him, why don't you go to Australia, and he went, But they all came back and say, I want to be here, my younger son say, and I want to be a devotee. He took initiation, his wife is initiated. So I feel like, we become as a parent successful when we see the children, they choose themselves to be a devotee. Because we can't force anybody.
Correct.
My grandfather said, you can take the horse to the lake, put his head inside the water, but if he doesn't want to drink.
Correct.
So sometimes as a devotee, I feel also they make a mistake of pushing too hard.
Shouldn't.
So then they reject Krishna consciousness altogether.
Shouldn't be
so
any
we should
push.
Inspire them.
Inspire. And how you inspire them? If you are inspired yourself, it's by your example.
Yeah.
They're so perceptive, And if you are like some kind of faking it or you're not real, they know. They know.
They can spot it. They can say.
But if you have a taste and these things they touch the soul, like the scripture. So it's not about forcing, it's about exposing them to it. That's all.
Absolutely.
No, you wouldn't have to
absolutely.
force anybody. And And that will have a it will be counterproductive, They will actually want to reject it afterwards.
So you suggest that everybody should do this Bhakti?
I suggest that the
Shastra
culture of
course.
studying the scriptures, maybe if it's not formal Bhakti Shastra for children, but there
Studying
should be an
scriptures.
emphasis on this, reading together, having reading groups. There was some years back on the ILS, there was a survey done for the leaders, if they have read Prabhupada's books. And the statistics were really down. You were there at the time, I think.
Yes,
It was just,
yes.
So it was like,
But let me tell you one thing. There is a reason why. We were 10 years in Sankirtan. Me, from the day when I joined 79. So we've been in Sankirtan for 10 years. And like you, we were every day going for 3-4 months. This is book, Nepal, Bangladesh, South India, North India, Gujarat, everywhere. So our main focus was discipline. Of course, we read Bhagavad-gita, we have every day Bhagavatam class, but we didn't go in-depth studying Prabhupada books because we were like the distribution.
Correct.
Plus, we were doing program every day in some dharmasala, in some temple. Sometimes we do drama in the night with the Nama-hattas will be the demon coming out and fight, but we were fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. So
wonderful.
We did not have the time to deeply study, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-gita we studied many, but this was because we are like soldiers who were fighting. Okay, whoever qualified, not qualified, just go and fight.
Yeah.
So we were there.
Yeah.
We had 2-3 buses, van. I was driving one of the van and distributing books, all over the place. So that's why one reason. Then, of course, we came back to Mayapur, we became manager, this, that also. Again, no time, meeting against people, waiting. So, but
this is the thing that...
But if you tell me now, I would like to do it, but I don't think my brain will even take it. Because I'm 70 years old, so I don't know.
Anyone can take it.
No, I don't know.
Everyone can take it. But the thing is that, and the field of education, ISKCON has evolved a lot. Now we have a lot of courses, and it's accessible.
It's changed now.
It's changed,
Changed.
So I think there's a lot of
internet,
progress.
a lot of facility.
A lot of facility.
Courses on, you don't have to be in any place.
Everybody's different, Some people are going to be more inclined to
work
kirtan or to do one thing. But the focus should be Prabhupada's teachings,
of
and
course.
we should be Prabhupada wrote the books. He gave the best time for us. He gave the best time of his day. He made, right until the end by his own example. He was getting, I'm convinced that his empowerment came through the Bhagavatam. Because he was every day, in touch with the Bhagavatam, translating. And even when he was leaving this world, we had a famous video where he's dictating.
Yes.
But he was also hearing the first canto of the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
So this is the path that has been delineated by the Acharyas, Prabhupada, all the previous Acharyas, that we absorb ourselves in hearing and chanting, and then when the time of death comes, where our mind will be,
The amazing thing that Srila Prabhupada say, I am myself reading this book because I didn't write this book. Krishna is dictating to me.
Exactly.
And then I'm enjoying reading this book.
Exactly.
You say, you find any author reading his own book? No. I am the only one because Krishna is dictating this book to me.
Yeah.
And I am enjoying reading it. So, and he said many times, I didn't write this book just for selling them. I want you to study this book and read them.
And this is one thing I noticed when I started to kind of read Prabhupada's books consistently, that there was a voice that comes with the books, and it's like, it's not Prabhupada's voice, it's Krishna's voice, Of course, we get in Prabhupada's also, no question about it. But it's Krishna speaking to us through the teachings. And without, when somehow, because we have so much going on in our minds, it's like the radio, and you're trying to tune in, right? And but see, somehow you can tune into that pure transcendental sound vibration.
It's nothing like that.
It touches your heart. And then that's it, you become different to so many things.
Absolutely.
So we aspire for that. Now, otherwise, Maya is so strong,
Very powerful. We'll see many people fall down, many great people. I mean, including the Shastra, there are many historical events of very powerful people falling down. Indra, Brahma, wherever, many great devotees as well. So these are all things for us to ponder and meditate. So we'll learn from this and say, if you find yourself going a little bit off this way or that way, then, by the association of devotees, we should be able to keep ourselves on track.
Sure.
Following the sadhana properly. And
5 items, right? You have like, chanting the holy name, reading Bhagavatam, association with the bodies, worshiping the deity, and living in a holy place. We can mold our lives somehow to have these 5 activities. Then our bhakti will grow.
Absolutely. So are you still in contact with this teaching which you were doing
Middle East? Well, after what happened was that COVID came, and then everything became online.
Online, yeah.
So I was going to the Middle East from 2011, I think, to 2019. Every year I would spend like at least 2 to 3 months there. I went to Oman, Kuwait, all these places, very nice. Wonderful. Jayapataka Goswami is...
I've been with him many times.
Oh, you've been there, eh?
I've been there also with his audience.
Most beautiful yatras, people... And what is it? The culture of hearing is so strong,
But it's amazing because they live in a Muslim country.
Yeah.
So their culture is like, let's be together and let's help the devotee together.
One thing I noticed also, they have their material situation sorted. They're all, okay.
Yeah.
So, and their enjoyment, their recreation is sadhu sangha.
Yes.
And hearing, And I was going there, but frankly, I got so much nourishment from them, because I saw their enthusiasm, for hearing and chanting. Yes. Incredible, I remember that I say one place you arrive there, I say like June 12th afternoon. So you have a program June 12th evening, or maybe 2, and then you leave like July 13 or July 12th also, and it's on that day you have a program. It's every day. They have so many satsangas, and no matter what time of the day it is, no one falls asleep.
No, they're all very dedicated and focused.
Super nice. That was.
I think it's a contrast which makes the people more realizing their own culture. Because when you are outside, what happened in India, everything is like, yeah. You try to see book in India. Oh, I have this book. My grandfather has it there in a shelf. I know Bhagavad-gita. I'm God, you are God, we're all God. If you go South India, a lot of Mayavadi, they can try to convince you that with their Mayavadi philosophy, okay, forget it. But, but when you are in a foreign country, which is Muslim maybe, or any other things, then the people start to focus more. Okay, where's my belief? Where is my culture?
Yeah.
And then if you go a little deeper into that, then you discover there's so many things which is very beautiful, very attractive. And you realize why the great sages had this knowledge. So it's just the extreme difference, which makes people more focused in their culture, which is very nice.
Yeah. Actually, for me, I didn't mention that before, but I met the devotees. My first book was given to me by my mom in Spain, but
your mom?
My mom, yeah. She gave me like 90. Karma, the Infallible Justice. It was like a small book, with the cow.
The cow and the man with the face of the cow.
And it had very small font. So, and Sanskrit, it was hard to read.
Yeah.
But I remember in the back, it was a picture of Prabhupada, And that picture of Prabhupada, he's at the Bhaktivedanta Manor in the garden, he's looking up. He has his eyes kind of really deep, profound, And I remember seeing the picture and thinking, an internal, like an inner voice, it said, if someone has the truth,
he's the man.
He's the man. And I remember putting the book on my bookshelf. But anyway, I met the devotees in England, and then it turns out that the temple in Spain was literally like 10 minutes away from my home. by car, and I have never seen it. And there was a big sign, Hare Krishna, on the way to my home. Never seen it.
Yeah. So Krishna has designed a perfect pathway for us to take us to devotion, which can be the other side of the world and other people. Yeah. It's amazing because
he's more
in your heart.
Yeah.
So he knows your desire. And he knows what you need. And he knows how to make you surrender to the point that you know him.
Yeah.
Once you know him, everything becomes very easy. He says, if you know Lord Chaitanya, the most difficult thing becomes easy.
Yeah.
And if you don't know him, the most easy thing becomes very difficult, complicated.
Yeah.
So it's like that, and then I think all of us as a devotee, we have experience of magic things happening to us.
Yeah.
Like we said, Jesus performed many miracles, but many miracles happen to us in our very life.
Yeah.
I've experienced that, and I'm sure you do also. So, and then your faith becomes strong. That Krishna is there, and you are with me, and every day we wake up and say, okay, my dear Lord, please let me chant your name. Let me be close to you. And then, gradually your anartha goes away and you become firmly fixed in devotion and you try to render some service the best you can.
Yeah.
So Radhika...
Sankirtan had that thing, that we could experience Krishna's intervention,
Daily. Many adventures, every day. Because if you're not surrendered to Krishna, you won't be able to sell any books. You cannot do anything.
It's
we are only in his hand, So Radhika Nagar Prabhu, such a wonderful time to spend with you. And would you like to give a message to all the people who are listening today, our audience, devotees, who are listening to this podcast? What is your final message to these devotees, to the people?
Well, Krishna is a reality and we can access him. We can come in touch with him through the transcendental sound vibration, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you haven't read the Bhagavatam, sometimes it can be very challenging because if you don't have it, the first step is to get it, right? But if you have the Bhagavatam at home and you see on the shelf and it's like so many volumes,
you get scared.
And it's like, I won't be able to read this ever, So my advice is that pick up the Bhagavatam, first canto of the Bhagavatam, or whatever canto you left off, and get it out of the shelf, put it nearby, and make a point to open it every day. Even if it's just to read one page.
Yes.
No pressure.
No.
But, take advantage of this gift that Prabhupada's given us. That he did, as I said, gave the best time of his day. He considered this the most important project for him, along with the DOBP, to complete the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Krishna Swadamopagate Dharma Jnana Divisaha Kalana Sadhishamisa Puranar Kutonavita. This Bhagavatam is brilliant as the sun, and it has a reason to give light. Oftentimes we feel, where is the darkness? The darkness is in our hearts. And we cannot see things properly. We become confused about what's right, what's wrong. So the perfect arrangement for Kali Yuga is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So my message to you, if you are doing it, great. And if you are not, get the Bhagavatam out and you don't need to enroll in any courses. You can just read yourself for pleasure. And then you'll see your life. The magic that Ganga Prabhu is talking about will definitely manifest in your life. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Even I'm thinking some people prefer to hear Bhagavatam, and now we can go to the phone, and all the books are available in audio format.
Yeah.
So sometimes, Prabhupada say, you cannot sleep in the night, listen to the Bhagavatam, and you can sleep. But then just say that some people can listen in the car or while you're flying. And
now it's more accessible than ever before.
And before it was like tough.
Yeah, now you have the phone. It's like
everything is there.
But the problem with the phone is that it's so many distractions there. It's just WhatsApp, it's your social media. You have so the physical book, and you put set
It's
aside
beautiful.
it's got some special
Potency.
and protection,
Absolutely,
so that you can do it even if you read for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's focused, and then you kind of build up from there.
Sure.
I was in Abu Dhabi, I think it was, or Kuwait, I don't remember, and they had this, and I'll finish with this. There was this, they have these labor camps where these
All the
Bangladeshi
workers,
people, they come to work. They're almost
Yeah.
like slaves. They're working hours, and then but they had this apartment. There were like 17 of them living there. They have an altar there, Tulsi plant, and I remember I said, I was just sharing the same thing. He said, just open the Bhagavatam every day. Just read a few pages. And I came the year after, and a few of them have read the whole Bhagavatam.
Beautiful.
Just by reading. Of course, you need to read like about an hour a day to read the whole Bhagavatam in 1 year, but
nice.
a few minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure being with you today.
Thank you.
And I hope we'll meet again. And
Gauranga.
Gauranga. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Hare
Srila
Krishna.
Prabhupada ki
Yeah.
jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Yeah.
jai. Hare
Hare Bol.
You're listening to Radio Mayapur with the best devotional, meditation, kirtan music, and inspirational podcast. This is Radio Mayapur.